Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this session for today. As you all know, this is a three-session series starting from today, wherein in the first series, the first session, we would be discussing about online banking frauds and also about their investigation and prevention. In the second, episode that would be on the next week, we would be discussing about wholesale banking frauds, including the mortgage frauds, and of course, their investigation and prevention. And in the last episode, which would be I think 2 weeks from now, we would be discussing about the career in investigation, which is a request by many of the members. And I would be sharing some insights on that as well. So with your permission, I think we should start for today's session, which is titled as Online Banking Frauds. In this particular session, we would be talking about, side by side, actually, I'm admitting all those people who are joining. At the moment, we are having around 40 participants. So just bear with me. Okay. So as I was saying, on this particular session, we would be talking about online banking frauds, which includes credit debit card frauds and online banking frauds, whether it is post purchase or whether it is diversion and transfer of funds through online or online purchases. To begin with, there's some glitch over here. Yeah. To begin with, I would start with this is the content of today's session. We would start with the RBI circulars on fraud prevention and investigation. What are the responsibilities of the banks and what is the limited liability which is offered to the customers? Now, as we all know that the regulator is going more and more customer friendly. And I think if you could please mute yourself so that actually, because otherwise it is getting a disturbance over here. So the first we will be discussing. Can I request everyone to please be on mute?
Mr. Rakesh Yadav, please mute yourself.
Okay, so we will be talking about, as I said, we will be talking about the RBI mandate and the limited liability of the customers. Then in the second portion, we will be talking about the recent fraud losses in the recent years. What is the trend, and how we can prevent that, how we can reduce that. As most of us are bankers and chartered accountants, I think we are the right forum to discuss on these lines. In the third portion, we will be talking about the law enforcement investigation. In fact, we will be talking about the entire investigation process around these frauds, whether it is internal, external, and what are the challenges the internal investigators or the external law enforcement investigators are facing to detect these frauds. And in the last portion, we would be talking about the solutions which are available in the market, which the banks are using to prevent these frauds, and also the other solutions which are available, which have not made their presence felt in the market as of now. So we will begin on this with the RBI guidelines on electronic transactions. So the first of all, I would be talking about a particular circular, which most of you would be aware, which is dated July 6, 2017. I am not repeating the number of the circular. You can note it down over here, or maybe perhaps you can just Google on the RBI site and you can find it. The title of the circular is Limiting Liability of the Customers in Unauthorized Electronic Banking Transactions. Now, this is a very prudent kind of circular which the RBI has issued in the year 2017. And as I was saying, that now the regulators' focus is more towards to easing the business for the customer, easing the transactions for the customers, and promoting the online banking transactions and banking transactions, so that just to curtail the, say, cash transactions and all those things. So this is a step in that direction. We would be discussing for that towards this circular in the later part. And the next circular, which I would like to talk about, the master circular on frauds, classification and reporting, which is dated July 1, 2015. Now, as per this circular, it is really a pain for most of the banks, because now, I mean, all the internal or external frauds, the investigation has to be conducted, and these frauds are to be reported in the required performers to three boards. One is towards the board of the bank. Then they have to report all these frauds in FMR1 pattern to the regulator, that is RBI. And if the fraud is above rupees 1 lakh, it has also to be reported to the law enforcement, which is either the police or the CBI, Central Bureau of Investigation. Now we will be discussing about the difficulties which the banks are facing, and the kind of additional work which banks have incurred due to these reporting pattern. And we would also be discussing about the solutions which are available in the market to reduce this workload towards the bank. Before I move on, I would like to request everyone that please be on mute. And in case you have any clarification, if you require any clarification during this presentation, you can just raise the hand or unmute yourself, and you can shoot your questions. I would be more than happy to answer that. I will stop the presentation and answer the query right away. Okay. Okay, so as per the said circular, the July 7, 2017 circular, there are responsibilities of the banks, which is mentioned in the relevant portion of this circular. The banks are required to provide SMS alerts for all transactions. Now, it is the responsibility of the bank to provide alerts for each and every transaction which goes through in a customer's account at the registered telephone, registered mobile number of the customer. And for that, the bank is required to stress upon the customers to register for SMS, and if possible, also for the email alerts. So which means is, at the time when the customer is opening the account, they are required to provide a mobile number wherein they would be getting all the alerts about all the transactions, whether they are electronic transactions or whether through checks. Mr. Selvaraj, could you please be on mute?
Yeah.
Thank you. So, as I was saying, the alerts are to be provided, which is a mandate for the banks. And for that, the banks are also mandated to ask the customer for register for to provide a mobile number wherein they would be receiving all these alerts. The banks are also to ensure that there is a facility available to each and every customer to report about any unauthorized transaction in their account 24/7, which could be either through website or phone banking or SMS or email, or through a toll-free helpline. The customers should have an access 24/7 to provide these to complain about any unauthorized transaction. Also, periodically, the customer should be advised to notify to the bank about any unauthorized electronic banking transaction at the earliest. When we would see the remaining part of this particular section, this circular, we would come to know that why it is necessary. But these are the mandated things which the bank is supposed to provide to all these, all their customers. Now we come towards the customer liability. Honestly speaking, as per this particular circular, the customer's liability in all kind of unauthorized electronic banking transaction is practically zero. It is a surprising thing which the circular says, but I would elaborate actually why it is zero as of now. For any contributory fraud, or through the negligence or deficiency on part of the bank, the customer's liability would be zero, which means if there is a negligence on part of the bank or a deficiency, or there is a collusion between any banking agent, maybe a private agent or the banking staff itself, or the bank, or any other fraudster, so the customer liability in that particular fraud would be zero. Also, in case of a third-party breach, which means where the deficiency lies neither with the bank nor with the customer, which means a third party has created a breach in the account of the customer, wherein neither the bank nor the customer is liable. So again, the customer's liability would be zero. But the caveat over here is that the customer needs to notify the bank within 3 working days of receiving the communication from the bank regarding the unauthorized transaction. Now we see that was the reason wherein this circular mandates the bank to provide to request the customers to provide a registered mobile number for all these kind of alerts. And if the customer receives these kind of alerts about an unauthorized transaction, and within 3 working days they complain to the bank about that particular transaction, the liability of the customer would be zero. Going ahead, again, in case where the loss of is due to the negligence of the customer will bear the entire loss until he or she reports that unauthorized transaction to the bank. But the moment they report this breach to the bank, if any transaction happens after that, so the customer liability would be zero and the entire loss would be borne by the bank. In cases where the responsibility for the unauthorized electronic banking transaction lies neither with the bank nor with the customer, and the liability would be as below, which would be between 5,000 rupees to 25,000 rupees till they report the fraud. Now, as we see this entire circular, the main focus of this circular is totally customer friendly. And we can see that this has been done to encourage the online banking transactions for the customers, so that there is no dependability on the banks. But because of these transactions, now the burden of proving that whether the customer was at fault or whether it was a third-party breach or whether any internal deficiency was there, this entire investigation needs to be conducted by the bank itself. So the burden of proving customer liability in case of unauthorized electronic banking transaction would lie with the bank itself. Additional work over here we can see here, and that is the reason if we see over the last couple of years, the loss reported by the banks has been increasing, barring the last financial year. In 2018-19, the loss reported by the banks was around 71 crore, wherein in 19-20 it increased to 129 crore, However, due to pandemic last year, the fraud reported is 119 crore only. It has reduced. Now, this is a problem the banks face, wherein because the RBI circular mandates reporting all the frauds which are above 1 lakh rupees to the law enforcement. The banks find it really very difficult to file the complaints because of the jurisdictional issues. And police also finds it difficult to investigate these cases, again for the jurisdictional issues. Now, what is the jurisdiction and what are the jurisdictional issues we would discuss in the later part of this presentation.
Hey, Shanti Ratu, is there a seminar? Fraud prevention in banks.
Mr. Surti, could you please be on mute? Thank you. Before moving on, we would discuss about the type of frauds which are happening in this arena. We would begin with the application fraud. Now, what is an application fraud? Bankers would be having a knowledge around this. I mean, this is the initial part of the fraud which happens in a credit debit card or a online banking fraud environment. Application fraud means that the entire application is bogus, which is made to either to open the account or to apply for a debit or credit card, a credit card. What happens is the fraudsters, they are mostly ex-agents of the bank or some people who are colluding with them. They create fictitious applications for issue of a credit card, or they open a bogus bank account with bogus documents only, KYC documents. In this particular case, because the KYC documents and the address proof and everything is bogus, the credit card reaches or intercepted in between. It is used for the maximum limit. And then when the limit is over, when the first bill is generated, the fraud is reported. I mean, it comes to light to the bank only. As you can see, there would be no customer liability over here, and the entire loss would have to be borne by the bank. Again, the next type of fraud is never received card. The customers are genuine. They apply for a card, and we all might have experienced then that when we are moving, coming out of a mall or from a service station or from a, say, petrol station, there are people standing over there who ask you to apply for a card. They take your details and everything. But in this particular case, the customer will not receive the card because the form and everything would be filled in by the fraudster, and the card would be intercepted and used by them. In this case also, the customer liability would be zero because herein there is no genuine customer and the entire thing is bogus only. Stolen cards, there would be a bit somewhat say liability on the customer. The stolen cards are the cards actually if some pickpocket has picked your card, or if you lose your card I mean midway or something, or somebody has picked your card from your counter or something. At that point in time, if it is misused, now as per the circular which we discussed, the liability of the customer would only be limited to the till they report the fraud to the bank. For that also, as we said earlier, the liability would limit only between rupees 5,000 and 25,000 if the complaint is made within 3 working days. And the remaining, and the banks in this particular case are supposed to block the card immediately, and the banks do that also, so that there is no further misuse, because any further misuse by on that particular card would have to be borne by the bank itself. Next is counterfeit or skimming of cards. which means a duplicate card created using a genuine card, the information on a genuine card. You would be surprised to know that all these scammers and everything, they are available online for a payment of just 1,000 rupees. You can, any fraudster can buy these scammers. These are pocket type scammers. And while we provide a card to any restaurant or any service station or something to make a transaction, it can be swiped on those particular scammers, and through the MAC tape of the card, the entire data of the card can be stolen. So by that, the counterfeit or skimmed cards are created. Now, interesting thing is that investigation of these cases is really very easy, because there would be two cards available, and from the location of transactions, the investigators can easily find out that there are two cards operating, because the location would be different in both the cases. There could be instances that parallelly, I mean, the card is being used at two locations. Apart from that also, because most of the banks nowadays are creating a database of online banking transactions. So you would be able to find that while the actual card is being used at one particular location, one area only, there would be a duplicate card being used at a totally different location. You can stop me wherever you need any clarification. I would be more than happy to answer to the queries. Now, this is a new type of fraud which has emerged over the last couple of years. I think the first case we found was in the year 2017 only, the synthetic IDs. Now, what is a synthetic ID? What the fraudsters are doing, I mean, they're using the data of a genuine customer, mixing it with to create a fictitious ID. Right, the photograph of the customer would be taken as it is, wherein the other biometric data or something would be created by themselves, and a fictitious ID would be created. Using these IDs, accounts are opened, or say the credit cards are obtained, which are misused, and but in these particular cases, because there won't be any genuine person. So these cases are very difficult to identify. Now I'll give you a instance actually which we came to know while I was working with a particular bank. There was a family of around 6 people, father, mother, 2 children, and mother of the father and sister of the father. So what they did was they created synthetic IDs, 5 to 6 synthetic IDs, and basis those IDs, they opened accounts in different banks. So, I mean, when they opened the accounts, they were provided with the credit cards as well, and also the overdraft facility was also provided to them. What they used to do, one particular ID of these 6 IDs, I mean, they used to operate in group only. So these 6 IDs, they were, in fact, operational in the area of North India, right, starting from Delhi to Ghaziabad to Chandigarh and Ludhiana as well. So they were shifting their residences, creating bogus residential proofs as well, applying for these, creating these synthetic IDs on those particular addresses, duping the bank, and then moving on. Now, in these particular cases, the investigation was really very difficult. The reason being, none of the ID was genuine. Neither the Aadhaar cards, nor the PAN cards, or neither the residential documents as well. They used to create residential documents or the rental agreements, which they used to provide, because they were staying in that area for 3-4 months only. And post that, they were just moving around. But only when we match the photographs of these people, then we realize that it is only one group operating from different locations. So there was a lot of manual work actually required for these kind of investigations. The last part of the frauds is the online phishing and smishing cases. Now, online this phishing and smishing is usually done to get the data about a customer, which is only known to them. And as we all know that phishing is through phone, phishing is through email, and smishing through SMS. The fraudsters convince the customer to share their details, the card number, the card CVV number, and all those things. And the moment the customer shares that, the online transactions are done using this data. Should I move on?
Sir, good evening, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
See, in the circular, it is written that what you have said about the RBI, that within 3 days, one has to inform to the respective bank.
Yes.
Now what happened if the email ID and phone number is given to the bank, that person has expired during a COVID.
Yeah.
So now in such a circumstances, what will be the position of a legal heirs who are informing bank after lapse of 3 days? Because that for mobile or message will be available only on his mobile number.
Yes. So,
Because
I mean,
circular has not dealt with that particular aspect, sir.
so if we, I mean, I'll be honest with you, if the bank receives, say, I mean, the circular simply says that the bank should receive information about a particular debit transactional fraud. So it is not required that who is filing the complaint, right? If a person is using, because I mean, if you see your debit credit cards, behind all debit credit cards, the say the contact number, the complaint filing number is provided. The 24 hours helpline is provided. So banks should not, I'm using the word should not take a plea that because it is not coming from an authorized or the registered phone number, we will not entertain this transaction. If the first duty of the bank is the moment they receive an information about any say unauthorized electronic banking transaction, the card or the account should be immediately blocked. Right. So this is the first responsibility of the bank. Now, if the genuine customer complains that he had not instructed, immediately after putting forth some questions or authorizing that the account can be authorized to be operated, but till the authorization is done, the moment the bank receives any information about any unauthorized transaction, the account should be blocked. This is what the RBI mandates.
But within how many days on the receipt of the fraud has been taken, bank is bound to reimburse or recredit the amount?
I will come to that, ma'am. I mean, in the later part of my presentation, I would deal on this.
Okay.
Yeah,
because I am having a genuine case where we have represented to the bank, but there is no response for the last 3 months.
Right.
Due to the death of a person of a COVID and children are small. We have taken up the matter with the bank, but the bank says that unless insurance claim is settled, we cannot look into your problem.
I have not put that particular portion of that circular. This particular circular says, if you read it in totality, it says that within 45 days, the dispute should be settled. In case within 45 days, the dispute is not settled, it should be escalated to the nodal officer of the bank or even to the board of the bank. If the board is not listening, I mean, the next escalation is to the banking ombudsman.
Okay.
Sir, in this case, customer dies, the legal should immediately inform the bank that he died, though they will block the card. Then there is no question of misuse of card.
Exactly. That is what I'm saying.
Sir, whoever is saying, the person in whose family, wife and small children are there, person dies in COVID, hospital expenses, everything, we're immediately informing to the bank. You just see the today's situation. Is it possible? What is a practically family is undergoing?
Okay.
Srimali sir, you also contribute something.
Ma'am, you're right in your perspective. And these are totally, I mean, out of the blue kind of the situations which we are going through. And even the banks are not prepared for that. Banks are also, I mean, working with the skeletal staff and all those things.
Yeah.
But I totally understand your point, because I mean, case to case there would be a difference. But what the RBI circular says that if immediately somebody informs the bank that there is a fraud, further transactions should not be permitted on that particular account.
Okay.
Yeah. Now moving on, how these fraudsters are benefiting because of these frauds. What they do is they keep the maximum distance from the account holder to where they are doing the transaction. Now the latest trends are that if the card is stolen, or if there is an application fraud or never received card or counterfeit or skimming cases are there, the fraudsters are ensuring that they are not using that particular card or that particular account in the same location, same jurisdiction. Reason being, I will cover that in the next slide. They want to keep the maximum distance from the fraudster so that proper investigation should not happen. And that is the main reason these cases are very difficult to investigate, even by the law enforcement. Now, I was speaking about the jurisdiction and why it is difficult for the cops to investigate, or why it is difficult for the internal investigators also to investigate these cases. The legal provision of India is, if we go through Article 7 or Schedule 7 of the Indian Constitution, it says that the police is a state subject, which means a police of a particular state can only exercise their powers within that particular state only. So for instance, if a fraud happens in Maharashtra and we report the fraud to the Maharashtra police, they have the limitation of investigating that case in Maharashtra only. If now, because these online frauds or all these credit debit card frauds, these fraudsters are ensuring that the distance is maintained. They will never use the card in Maharashtra state. They will use the card or the account outside Maharashtra only, so that the Maharashtra police cannot investigate. Now, many a times the bankers, I mean, I attend all these conferences and everything. The bankers complain that the police does not accept the complaint. This is the main reason behind that. Although in our Indian IT Act, in Indian Information Security, IT Act, Information Technology Act, it is mentioned that the police cannot refuse a complaint in any aspect. But in these cases, the investigation for the police officer is really very difficult, because they cannot move out of their particular state to investigate the case. And the moment they find that the transaction has happened outside of the state, they try to shrug off their responsibility and just refuse to accepting those complaints. Now, we have seen the jurisdictional issues. We have seen that actually these frauds are on the rise. So what the banks are doing as of now, on their own, they are trying to track the transactions of each and every customer. There are software available now wherein most of the banks are using them, and they try to track the location of the transactions for each and every customer. It happens in the back end. Most of the time the customers don't know that this is happening, but the location is tracked, and the pattern of each and every customer is identified, that actually through which area they are operating their accounts. The pattern is made that, supposing I'm staying in Powai and I'm expected, and my office is in Bandra Kurla complex. So mostly I would be doing transactions around Powai, or through Bandra Kurla complex, and through artificial intelligence and machine learning, the pattern is captured by the banking software. If there are subsequent transaction, immediate subsequent transaction and numerous transaction outside of this jurisdiction, the alert would be generated in my account, and the banking helpline team would be contacting me, stating that these are out of ordinary kind of transactions. So do you permit these transactions, or do you decline these? So a proactive measure has now started from the bank side, wherein even if the customer is not complaining, because most of the time these transactions happen late at night, wherein the customer is sleeping, although they are getting all the alerts and all those things, but they only come to know in the morning that their account has been misused. So the banking fraud prevention teams are now alerting the customers about these kind of unauthorized transactions, and the action is taken proactively.
Sir, you said that the police are not taking the complaints of this fraud.
Yeah.
But 2-3 days back, Chennai police have given this alert to all the people. If you are having any such problem, within 24 hours, you contact us and we will contact the National Cyber Crime Helpline. So they are given the helpline and they asked us to come to the police station immediately, or they are given the helpline number also.
Exactly. I fully agree with you, sir. I mean, having worked with the law enforcement for 22 years, and again with the corporate banking environment for 10 years, I agree with you. There has been proactive engagement by the cops as well. But investigation in these cases are still very difficult because of the jurisdictional issues. I mean, I'm really happy that Chennai police is now, coming out and talking to the customers and informing them to file these kind of complaints. But practically speaking, investigating these crimes is still a very difficult task because of the jurisdictional issues. The Chennai police, I'll be, stating for a fact that Chennai police won't be, I'm supposing that they would be able to register the case. But how can they investigate? Because I mean, they cannot move out of Chennai to investigate if the crime has happened outside of Chennai. This is a legal provision. I mean, practical difficulty which the cops are facing as of now.
Then what is that national cyber crime then? National cyber crime.
So national cyber crime again is a initiative taken by the government. They are again creating a database of all these kind of complaints. They are alerting the banks. In fact, when I was with a multinational bank, saying Citibank, that point in time, we used to get alerts from the national cybercrime people to, block certain sites wherein this kind of frauds were happening. Investigation still is quite a challenge. They have had some successes in the recent past. They have been able to arrest a couple of, gangs which are engaged in these kind of frauds. But these are only a couple of cases which could be solved. But again, getting back the money is really a challenge, because what happens is these frauds are between the, say, the amount of, say, 10,000 rupees or maximum 1 lakh rupees. And the moment the fraudster gets this money, they transfer the money or tries to spend the money or withdraw it in cash. So, getting the money back is really very difficult, even even for the cases in which the frauds have been detected by the cops.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you.
Yeah. So apart from that, this is what the banks are doing as of now. As I said earlier, tracking the transaction and alerting the customer for transaction from different locations. So the proactive measure has already been started, because most of the people, including the cybercrime cell of all the state police, they have realized that investigating these cases is different. So the best possible way is to prevent these frauds. So this is what the bankers are doing. They are providing the customers alerts about inappropriate kind of looking transactions. They are tracking the suspicious locations as well. As I said, the suspicious location ATMs, which are prone to frauds, wherein in the past there has been a trend of seeing some additional equipment attached to them, or the locations from where the maximum frauds are being reported. So the banks are being alerted around that, and the banks are taking precaution to issue any kind of card, or many a times, I mean, manning those ATMs as well, so that these kinds of frauds should not happen again. I've already said that investigation of these frauds is really very difficult due to the jurisdictional issues. I am also sharing a particular tool which has been developed in the recent past. Now, this is tool called Triambak, which allows the transaction within a default city. Now, as we have seen that the police cannot investigate the cases outside of their jurisdiction. So this particular tool will provide transaction only within the city itself, with the default city, which is taken from the address of the customer. The moment the customer would move out of that particular jurisdiction, they would be receiving an alert to allow or decline that particular transaction. So this particular tool is based on a in-house built map, which tracks the location of the customer as well as the transaction. If the customer is using the mobile banking app, that point in time, the alert, wherever the customer goes, the transaction would be allowed, irrespective of their default city or something. But if they are not using the mobile banking app, the transaction would be allowed within the default city. The moment the person goes out of that default city, each and every transaction they will have to approve through their two-way mobile, say SMS, to allow or decline the transaction. So this allows a complete control to the customers for each and every transaction. It takes care of the jurisdictional issues which usually the police feels in investigating these crimes, because the entire transaction will happen to the approval of the customer only, or within the default city only. Now here, there won't be any jurisdictional issues. This particular tool also provides a ready investigation report. As we know that the banks have to employ so many investigators to do an investigation on each and every fraud. But this particular tool will provide a ready investigation report of each and every transaction, about the location of the transaction and also the location of the customer at that point in time when the transaction happens. No more investigation required. Immediately, the dispute can be settled. Now, I am done with my presentation. If we have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer.
Good evening, sir. This is Imran Ahmed from Chennai. So I have a query with respect to your doubt. So I was not able to clearly grasp the context of which you said earlier. Like so police refers to a state, right? So as per the constitution. So does it means, like, as per your example, if a card of a Maharashtrian if being used out of the state cannot be investigated by a Maharashtrian police? Is that what you're trying to mean, sir?
What I meant was, what I meant was that the jurisdiction of a Maharashtra police ends within the Maharashtra state only. If they have to investigate outside of that particular bit, if we see the practicality of the investigation, it is easier for a Maharashtra police guy to investigate within Maharashtra state, because they can, supposing, from Mumbai, the transaction has happened in Kolhapur or Solapur or any other part of Maharashtra. They can simply contact the Kolhapur guy and instruct him to conduct an investigation over there and get hold of that particular guy. The same ease is not available wherein the two states are involved. And because I mean, further transactions can be stopped, or the person in another state could be detained for a limited period, which is a maximum of 24 hours only. But beyond that, if they instruct the Chennai cops to, detain the person, the Chennai cops are also helpless, because they will have to produce the person to the court. And because they are not having the registered FIR with them, they won't be able to get the remand of that particular guy. Wherein the ease would be more within the Maharashtra state.
Okay.
Did I
Understood.
answer your question?
Yes, sir. Crystal clear, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, good evening. This is Suresh. Thanks for the very interesting session. I'm keen on knowing whether you have a collection of various typologies of online frauds, because it keeps varying. And is there any central or a place where we can look at all the collections so that banks can take preventive steps based on this collection of typologies?
Exactly. So, I mean, for online frauds, there is no repository as of now, but the RBI is issuing the Central Fraud Registry report to all the banks. Are you aware about that?
No, sir, I'm not aware.
Okay. So the RBI in the year 2018, they have started with the CFR Central Fraud Registry, wherein all kinds of frauds are reported. These frauds are reported by all the banks. Your bank's vigilance department would be reporting these frauds to the RBI, to the CFR. And on 25th of every month, the RBI report is shared with all the banks about all kind of frauds. In this particular report, the unique identity of the fraudster and the victim is also shared. The unique ID could be, say, PAN card, or the, say, Aadhaar card of the person, which is available in the CFR, and that is shared by all the banks. And henceforth, the banks are required to produce, I mean, when they go through this particular report, by 31st of every month, they are supposed to provide a certificate to the RBI that whether they are having any concerned account with any of the fraudsters mentioned in that particular list. If they are having any customer by those credentials, they have to provide their plan, how they want to exit the relationship. Because this has been started by RBI in 2018. And I think your vigilance department will be aware about this.
Sir, you said that
Thank you,
RBI
sir.
report. You said that RBI report. Is that the RBI report will have the modus operandi also?
Yes, it would be having. It would be having a brief about the case as well.
But this is available only to vigilance department or to everyone?
So it is available. It is made available to the vigilance department. Vigilance department then shares it, because I was the CV of Citibank earlier, and also of the Royal Bank of Scotland. So we used to get this report. It was our duty to share that with the concerned business people. So the mortgage business, or the different business heads used to get this report, and within those 7 days, they had to certify that they are having that any account connected to this particular say unique ID, or they are not having it. In case they were having any account, so how they want to exit that relationship, that was also supposed to be provided.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Tommy. I can add one more to that CFR. No.
Yeah.
As regard to the CFR, actually, the Reserve Bank provides the login ID to more than one login ID to a particular bank,
Exactly.
and the bank can share with the different underwriting team, or they can verify for their end. Furthermore, apart from CFR, the Reserve Bank of India introduced another registry that is named Central Payment Information Fraud Registry, particularly for the cyber-related frauds like ATM. There is another registry that has been taken care by the payment department of Reserve Bank of India, Bombay. In the case of CFR, that has been the ownership is with the Central Fraud Registry that, CFM, the department based in Bangalore.
Yeah.
There are, in fact, there are 2 registries are there.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting this, Mr. John. Really appreciate this. I just forgot to mention about this. Yeah, I mean, this registry is also available.
So, sir, Cyber Safe is also there to scan means negative list.
I don't think that is being shared with the banks. I'm not, I mean, 100% sure about that.
So, sir, I am actually Neeraj Kumar from Airtel Payments Bank. So, we are means accessing that particular portal, and we are extracting the data from that list.
Yeah.
So, LES has the rights to means import the data in that portal, and bank have rights to extract and map with their means ecosystem.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting this, Mr. Neeraj. I mean, this is the difficulty because, I mean, in the banks, that is the main challenge. Until and unless the RBI mandates anything, most of the banks are not very keen on introducing
Right.
new
So
kind of
that is
norms.
not the mandatory for banks to banks.
Yeah, yeah. And thanks for, I mean, highlighting this. Maybe,
Thank you
I
so
mean,
much, sir.
maybe the bankers actually available in during the session. They can make a note around that, because ultimately it is all about saving money of a particular bank.
On monthly basis, sir, we are maintaining that negative list for our bank customers. So that
Great,
means no frauds come into our system.
Great. Any other
Hello?
question?
Yes, sir. Hello. I'm Nandini. I'm part of like DCB Bank Vigilance Department.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, as you said, I'm aware of like CFR end-to-end activity, and I'm the one who is taking care of it. Other than this, you said one more registry is there. Actually, I'm not aware of it. Can you explain on that, sir?
So yeah, in fact, this electronic payment registry is also has been started. I mean, sharing by the RBI. The RBI started sharing this. I think from last year they have started sharing it. I'm not aware about the exact date.
2020, yes, sir, you are right.
Yeah, it is 2020 only. Yes.
Oh.
So maybe, I mean, from the RBI Bombay, if you can connect, they would be able to. They should have sent you a link. I think within your business only, they should have sent the link, or maybe through to your compliance officer, chief compliance officer. If you inquire from them, it would be easier for you as well to, I think, prevent these kind of frauds.
Yes, sir. I'll check on that. Is it the same like CFR reporting? Like we'll get that dump which is given by all the bank?
It is almost like that only.
Yeah, I'll check on that, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Pleasure.
Yeah, that the department is payment and settlement department in the Reserve Bank of India.
Ma'am, you got your reply? It is Payment and Settlement Department of RBI, Bombay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any other question? Okay, if there is none, I think we can close this session for today. We would meet next week as well, next Sunday as well, for wholesale banking fraud investigation and the type of cases which we find. And in case you need any other aspect to be covered, I would be more than happy to include that as well.
Sir, I'm Tommy John again. Regarding jurisdiction, no. There are number of cases which happens beyond the country, no. So the jurisdiction does not matter that much, no. The number of cases are happening beyond India, no. That means there's no control as regard the investigation is concerned.
So honestly speaking, the Indian police will never investigate those cases. There is no way you can get the money back. So that is the reason actually I am trying to introduce this Trayambak to all these people, to all the bankers, so that you can prevent all these frauds. If there is no transaction allowed outside of your area, so there is no question of fraud happening. And this entire control is being provided to the customer only. If they want to increase or decrease the area of operation, that also it can be done through your mobile app only.
Yeah, that can be curtailed or it can be controlled only by through introduction of AI and ML. There's only solution to
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. So this is what the Triumvirate is. So this is trying to control each and every this kind of fraud. Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks for your precious time. I'm really honored to see. I mean, these many people participating for a 1 hour lecture, that too on a Sunday. So really appreciate your time, and we will meet now on next Sunday.
Okay, thanks for
Thank you very
hosting the
much, sir.
program.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.